make people poor, and they keep people poor, and they prevent people from exiting poverty when they try it. Our work, again, is with the homeless, and when we began, we were brand new lawyers. My co-founder, Michael John Voss, and John McCanner and I went to St. Patrick's Center, which if you don't know it, it's a great organization, does great work in the city of St. Louis, helping the homeless. And the only reason, you might ask yourself, why do the homeless need lawyers? Well, it's because the primary obstacle preventing homeless people from getting off the streets and into housing and jobs and treatments were warrants for their arrest. A warrant for their arrest in a municipal court for being poor. A warrant for their arrest in a municipal court for being unable to pay fines that were assessed that were too high to begin with. The city of St. Louis spends $10 million a year to prevent and end homelessness. That money goes to social service agencies in order to provide housing and jobs and treatment to the most vulnerable in our society. That money can't be spent effectively because of the existence of the municipal court system. That money cannot help people get off the streets, help the most vulnerable among us, and save our region money because of the existence of the municipal court system. So there are stories that we've heard in the last 5 years that I know most of the folks in this room have been familiar with it. For the benefit of those who are listening to this or watching this, I'll say that clients have told us that they've been denied access to courts, and that I heard that earlier in the room. For years, we heard people talking about how mothers would go to court with their children, and they would be told that mom could come in, but the kids couldn't because the kids weren't on the docket that night. And so you've got a poor person who's come to court to pay their fines and fees, maybe they're on a payment docket, come to court to make their payment, and they're denied access to the court. So that creates a tough choice for mom. She can go into court and leave her children on the parking lot, and then go to CPS, or not go into court and get a warrant issued for her arrest. And what we've been hearing for years was that person who had made the decision to go into court and pay their fines to avoid the arrest, and who was arrested on the courthouse steps for child endangerment. That's right. And that happens. It doesn't happen a lot, but it doesn't have to happen very often for people to say, "I'm not going to court on my night if I can't get child care and run the risk that I'm either going to get a warrant for my arrest or I'm going to get arrested when I go in to make a payment." The other thing that I'll highlight real quickly, because I know our time has been condensed, is poor people who've been arrested on a warrant for the inability to pay their fines. They've been, to be frank, what they've been arrested on is not showing up in court. But they didn't show up in court, sometimes because of the decision I just laid out, sometimes to get into the money to pay, and they were afraid they were going to be arrested. And they have legitimate reason to fear they're going to be arrested. They're threatened routinely with arrest on the payment docket. There are some courts where they are taken from the courthouse to what they call the dungeon below the court, and held in a room that is not fit for human inhabitants, and held there and extorted until they make a payment. That's not one person that's told us, that's 10 people that told us. There's an article written in your paper, in St. Louis Post-Dispatch, who told you that, and it's just ignored. But folks say that they've been brought in on a warrant for failing to appear, and when they're brought before the judge, they say, "Judge, I don't have the money. I'm homeless, I'm poor." And the judge says, "I don't care. Go out in the hall, get on that payphone, call everybody you know and try to get some money. And you might be able to go home tonight." And that's its proposed legislation that would cap revenue at 10%. I think that's a great start. I would also support the consolidation or abolition of these municipal courts. It's not necessary. We don't have to have a municipal court system. You don't have to have a court in your backyard to enforce your municipal court ordinances. They could be enforced in St. Louis County in the Associate Circuit Court level. Now that would take some doing, but they could be enforced there. The other thing is, we should be humiliated into doing something about this, because Montgomery, Alabama was just sued for operating a debtor's prison, much like the ones that are operating in our county. And they figured out how to do something about it. Now, it took being shamed and being sued and the threat of federal intervention. Hopefully we don't have to go that far. But the answer there was Alec Karakatsanis at Equal Justice Under Law was able to get a settlement that included a provision of attorneys for everyone. Everyone who's facing charges where they might be jailed, and make no mistake, if you're standing in municipal court and you don't have the money to pay, you might end up in jail one day. So lawyers for everybody, and they did as a very simple thing. They created a form. Everybody had access to the form. You simply state how much income you have, and they proportion the fines to your income. It's a very simple thing. And people then, they were assessed a fine for their infractions, and they were allowed to make small payments, as low as $10 a month. You're not allowed to make $10 a month payments anywhere I know of in St. Louis County. And the other alternative is community service, but it would take some work to provide community service in a way that would actually benefit the community. I'm not talking about lining the pockets of a private probation company. I'm talking about someone trying to find a way to make probation, to make community service help the people who need the help the most. Thank you very much for your time.
Thomas, the court reporter, is trying to transcribe all that applause for you here tonight. Thank you for the selfless work of you and the Arch City Defenders, and I know you have a number of volunteers who help you in your good work. Next, we'd like to hear from Professor May Quinn from Washington University, who's done particular work on the impact of this system on youth and juveniles, and that's why we've asked her to be with us here tonight. Professor Quinn, thank you.
Thanks very much. Tough act to follow. I also do not have a PowerPoint, so hopefully my voice carries and these stories carry. I also had 20 minutes worth of information that I've condensed to 15, 12, 6, and we'll see how this goes. So I'll just cut to the chase. I've been a lawyer for 20 years. I've practiced across the country. I'm not just an ivory tower kind of academic. I have represented poor clients all over this nation, from Bronx, New York, to Austin, Texas, to Knoxville, Tennessee, to Washington, D.C., and I have never seen what I see here in this town. From widespread due process violations, to deprivations of the right to counsel, to hostility and retaliation for just doing our jobs as lawyers, to unequal and inhumane practices that work to reduce the life chances of St. Louis area youth. When I set up my legal clinic at Washington University 6 years ago, and I took my students into our courts and communities, I could not believe what I saw. I was shocked. And we have practiced in the juvenile courts, in the municipal courts, in the appellate courts, in the school disciplinary proceedings, in administrative proceedings. So it's not just a single view, and it's not just on a single night, and it's not just for one single client that I'm talking about. So while my testimony today will focus on municipal policing and prosecution of minors, people under the age of 18, I hope that the Commission comes back to the many issues facing young people in our schools, our juvenile justice system, and our criminal justice system. And I hope you will hear from my good and great colleagues at the SLU Legal Clinic as well, given their much longer view on these issues, as they've been working on them long before I was here in town. And because I believe we need wholesale, comprehensive, constitutionally rooted changes concerned with inspiring confidence and delivering fairness for all in our systems of justice, not just piecemeal fixes or Band-Aids. So let me tell you a story. About 3 weeks ago, I received a call from a mom. This is a formerly homeless woman struggling with her own health issues and trying to keep a roof over her head for her kids. And we have been working with this mom and her kids for quite a while. She was upset because she didn't know where her youngest son was. She learned he'd been picked up by police while walking down the street. They stopped him in a public setting, put him in cuffs, placed him in the back of the squad car, took him to a jail somewhere, and left his young girlfriend crying on the sidewalk. She wasn't sure where he was now, 10 hours later, and he's only 17. When I finally